You notice that President Obama's name keeps cropping up when we talk about these deportations. Remember, he is or was the deporter-in-chief, after all. He obviously is very sensitive about his legacy, and maybe that's why he's reemerged to trash President Trump and defend his version of democracy.
If you ask me right now what is our biggest challenge, I go back to what I talked about earlier. Our biggest challenge right now is we need democracy and social cohesion and trust more than ever. And it's probably as weak as it's been since I've been alive.
Well, it's still tough for Obama to talk without the teleprompter, isn't it? When he's not on the campaign trail, of course. Let's welcome in now Mark Vargas, a Republican strategist and editor-in-chief of the Illinois Review. Also with us today, Sonny Kutcher, who is the executive director of Young Americans Against Socialism. All right, Mark. President Obama, a fellow Chicagoan. A little painful to hear him speak yesterday. What was he talking about?
You know, I think he's just as confused and rudderless as the Democratic Party. I mean, John, the irony in all of this is that here he's talking about democracy when, as an oligarch, they defied the will of the people, 14 million Democrats, and hijacked the president, the Democratic nomination for president, took Biden out and inserted Kamala Harris in. But listen, Obama, his legacy is diminished. His value is diminished. In Chicago, for example, his library is $700 million over budget. Donations have ceased. They can't raise the money anymore. It's a massive problem for him. They're driving out Black residents to build this economic center around his presidential library and foundation. But the fact is coming from a man who's an oligarch, who's $700 million over budget for his own library, is proof, yet the Democratic Party continues to be in a mode of total chaos.
Yeah, Sonny, I watched the entire interview, and it was painful. Obama does that thing where he hems and haws, and it's like it's like lifting weights every time he has to make some sort of rhetorical point. He also talked about the fact that when he was in office, liberals could be a lot more open about how much money they had. They didn't care as much, and now they're facing threats from the populist flank. He equated that to what's going on in the Republican Party. What do you think?
Well, I couldn't agree with you both more. I think President Obama is not only the most entitled leader that we've had, but also one of the most detrimental. I mean, he brought in a socialized health care plan. He gave the worst Iran nuclear deal that we've ever had, billions of dollars to our enemy. And he put a spotlight on racism, which actually sowed division and chaos more in this country than ever before, because that's what leads right to their agenda, the far left, which is chaos and division, class war, which creates the opportunity for socialism. And it's really ironic that he's talking about wealth and what that means for people when that's the one thing, prosperity and wealth, that they've been seeking to destroy in this country.
Yeah, he left the cupboards bare for the Democratic Party. The New York Times talking about that. They're reporting that the DNC is going broke and the party is in chaos. Just this month, they say, 1 month into the tenure of new party leader Ken Martin, the Democratic National Committee's financial situation has grown so bleak that top officials have discussed whether they might need to borrow money to pay their bills, Mark.
It really is wild. The fact that if Obama can't raise money for his presidential library, the Democratic Party can't raise money to support their own candidates. Why? Because they've totally abandoned their values, their base. Yeah. Traditional Democrats, blue-collar Democrats, don't recognize their party anymore. This is the party that wants men to play in women's sports and men to use women's bathrooms. They're anti-Israel, anti-America, pro-Iran. This sort of rhetoric is dangerous. Our cities are being destroyed by their lawlessness. And so it's no surprise that the average person, the average Democrat, no longer identifies with their party. They've been orphaned. And it's the brilliance of President Trump and his realignment of politics in America. There's no longer the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. It really is the pro-America party. And this is a result of that.
Yeah. What do you think, Sonny?
Absolutely. You know, we've been seeing through the uncovering of USAID and all of these things that the DNC, all these radical left groups are funded by these NGOs. What we've seen is the uncovering, the exposure of the corruption, the money laundering. And I think it's about time that we see the reality that these organizations are led by radical left activists who want to bring destruction to our country. And you're exactly right, Mark. There is one side of this, one side of history that is saying we want to see America prosperous, healthy, safe, and free for all. And there's another side that wants communism, literally. And we're seeing that in people who are beginning to pop up. We're seeing the next leaders of that party, AOC and the like, who are self-proclaimed radical left activists.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. The insurgency campaign of Zohran Mamdani in New York, who's an avowed socialist.
Yeah.
He wants to, you can't say nationalize the grocery stores, but he wants to make them like city property and run it like it's the Soviet Union. And we all know how that worked out for the Soviet Union when the government's running the grocery stores. You never know what is going to catch President Trump's attention either. And apparently some Fox News poll that he saw today caught his attention. He went on Truth and wrote that Fox News polls got the election wrong. And in his post, he says, MAGA hates Fox News. I hate fake pollsters. One of the worst, but Fox will never change their discredited pollsters, Mark. President Trump activated by this today.
Well, yeah, this is just yet another example of the anti-Trump wing, Paul Ryan's influence on Fox News and holding very influential positions within that organization. They don't like Trump. They're against the Trump agenda. And we've seen this, and it's why Newsmax has exploded because conservative, pro-Trump, pro-America loving patriots are sick and tired of the biased news coming out of Fox. And again, it's the reason why Newsmax has seen an explosive growth over the last several years.
Yeah, Mark, thank you, of course, for the compliments. We loved having you on for many reasons, but you're always effusive with your compliments for Newsmax. Sonny, what do you think? Are we going to hear this come up at the press briefing today?
Well, not surprising from President Trump. He obviously coined fake news, and I think that was a turning point, and we're seeing that still with Fox. I mean, they just cannot get those, biased people, of course, have them on, but understand that a lot of people are going to stop watching because they do not trust the media.
All right. Well, I think we're going to take a quick commercial break. Before we just got the 2-minute warning, we'll try to take you back to the White House briefing room as soon as that gets started. We're also tracking Hurricane Eric, which is about to hit Mexico. We'll get an update from Mike Mascow if we can fit it all in with the press briefing as well. Still ahead here on John Bachman Now. Don't go away. All right, we got a couple minutes left here in the program that we'll get to some reaction from our panelists. Sonny and Mark are standing by for us. We did get some information. I think the biggest takeaway, Mark, is the 2-week deadline that Iran is now on. Just wanted to get you weighing on that real quick.
Yeah, I'm already flipping through X and seeing that breaking across my timeline there. But yeah, this is a big decision. The world is watching. The Trump doctrine is right. America first. This is an existential threat, and it's up to President Trump to decide how his decision, not only to secure our allies, but to secure us here at home. And I trust his gut instinct. We know he's already made that decision.
Sonny, your thoughts?
Absolutely. I trust President Trump wholeheartedly. I think many people are, overlooking the fact that just because there is strength, that doesn't mean there's an all-out war. I think President Trump is extremely calculated and strategic in the way that he is looking ahead in these next 2 weeks, as he is saying. And I think that we can trust President Trump to maintain peace and bring all the parties to the table with a deal that works for all, but especially no nuke for Iran that does chant death to America. And I think a lot of people are forgetting that.
Yeah, and I think Karoline also mentioned too that a lot of people are impressed with the ability of the IDF to strike Iran at this point, and I think that's given President Trump a little bit more latitude to kind of sit back and wait and see how Israel's operation goes before he needs to make any rash decisions in jumping in here. All right, well, guys, thanks for being with us. Mark Vargas, Sonny Kutcher, always appreciate your patience waiting for President Trump's press briefing there from Karoline Leavitt. Great to have you both with us today. We'll have you back again real soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, don't go anywhere. Still more to come here.